The Secrets of Star Wars is brought to you by the StarQuest Production Network and is made possible by our many generous patrons. If you'd like to support the podcast, please visit GiveStarQuest.com.
I am Emily Swallow, also known as the Armorer on The Mandalorian. And I'm just giving a little shout out to the Secrets of Star Wars podcast because this is the way.
Hello there.
It's a power that Jedi have that lets them control people and make things float.
Impressive. Every word in that sentence was wrong.
Help me, Obi-Wan Kenobi. You're my only hope.
This station is now the ultimate power in the universe.
I find your lack of faith disturbing.
It's against my programming to impersonate a deity.
That's not how the Force works.
Force is with me, and I am with the Force, and I fear nothing.
Remember, the Force will be with you, always.
You're listening to The Secrets of Star Wars, where we talk about everything connected to that galaxy far, far away. From movies to books, TV shows, and more, we are looking at the deeper themes and meanings found in the Star Wars universe. I am happy to say that I am back in the seat here, the host chair. I'm your host, Mike Creavey, back in the saddle, and joining me tonight are Jeff Haecker. Jeff, how's it going?
Hey, Mike.
And Thomas Salerno, welcome back.
Hey there, Mike.
Well, we've been waiting for this, I think, for a long time. To quote, is that Kylo Ren? I forget who that. Another Star Wars. I've been waiting for this for a long time. I think a lot of people say that. Long have I waited, said the Emperor, who somehow returned.
Oh,
yes.
right, yeah.
The Mandalorian
today,
somehow.
That's right. Yeah, today we are jumping in here, this long-anticipated return to the silver screen for Star Wars with the Mandalorian and Grogu. So I'm excited to get into this with you guys. And actually, you know what? Now that I think about it, I'm going to paste this in Slack so you can see it too. But if you didn't already, the StarWars.com like Mandalorian and Grogu trivia link was pretty helpful too. They just posted that, so I'll toss that over there for you guys, and you can reference it if you want as we go. But let me just jump right in and just we want to start here with. Just at least the first few minutes being a little spoiler free. I mean, it's likely that most people listening to this have probably seen it. But we want to start off just kind of with getting everybody's first impressions. And I thought we could frame it as far as just kind of what the overall experience was like for you guys seeing it here in the last couple of days at the time of this recording. So why don't I start with you, Jeff? How about first impressions, the overall experience of it?
Yeah, so I've actually seen it twice now. I saw it Thursday afternoon at the earliest possible time I could, and,
nice.
and I did see it in IMAX the first time, and then I saw it again today. And I did really like it. It was a fun adventure. It very much was an extended episode of the show, or like an arc of a season of the show. And I love that. I love The Mandalorian, the show, so that was great to see that. On the other hand, I wish it felt more connected to the future of the story of the Mandoverse, because it really didn't tie into much. There is a little bit that I'll get into when we talk about spoilers, but sure. I really love the live action introduction of some of the characters as well that we will talk about, because there were several that made their live action debut, and then everybody. I don't think there was any legacy character on the screen. If I could be wrong, but like thinking back, I don't think there was any legacy character from the original trilogy on screen. So like it was brand new to the movies for everybody, but there were a few who kind of made the jump from animation to live action too. So, but yeah, no, it was a great time at the movies. Very much it was a very fun adventure, I would say. Like it Star Wars, I feel like sometimes has, especially in the last few years, the fun has gone out of it sometimes, and not from their Star Wars making it, but just from all the drama and rhetoric around it. Sometimes the fun goes away, but I had a lot of fun. I thought it was great.
Yeah, how about you, Thomas?
Yeah, pretty much my thoughts are the same as Jeff. It was a really fun time at the movies. Pure escapism, old fashioned space adventure flick. It was just what I wanted. I agree that it was very much like an arc of the TV show. I really enjoyed it. It was interesting that they chose not to really, and I don't think this is much of a spoiler, to not really advance the character development a whole lot with our two main heroes. But I also understand why, because they want to leave things open for possible future seasons of The Mandalorian or other tie-ins with the shows that are happening in the same like concurrent time period. But overall, I did really enjoy it. Our theater, a lot of kids, packed experience. There were some people with some life-size Grogus there, Grogu figures or puppets or whatnot. And yeah, it was a lot of fun. The audience seemed to really dig it. It seemed to hit its intended audience of Star Wars nerds and little kids. So it was great. Yeah. And I have a few like nitpicks that I could get into in this most spoiler section, or things that I was mildly disappointed with, but overall I had a great time.
Sure. Well, I won't just say, I basically I agree with you guys. So I'll put it that way. And yes, and we'll get into the spoiler. We can just kind of dive in. I think now, if you haven't seen it yet, just pause it here, and then come back later. Or what about like 5 minutes in? You can come back later and finish it later. So spoiler. Here we go. But yeah, I just to kind of echo what you guys said, maybe we can kind of just maybe get this. I don't say get it out of the way. If you want to bring it up another time too, feel free. But I was kind of thinking about that, like who's not in it. Came to mind, because I think I had pretty good level set expectations going in, and a lot of I didn't really read any reviews or anything ahead of time. I wanted to go in pretty blind with it, but I just get the sense that after the last couple of years of Star Wars, a lot of in conversations I've had or just things I've seen online, or even my own kind of disappointment occasionally with certain things, I realized a lot of times I think it's just like setting it up to be something it can't be. And if you don't do that, that doesn't, you don't do that to yourself, so like for me growing up in the 80s and 90s, like, they're never going to do anything, right, that will like be like it was the first time, where it's a completely new, it's just, that's done. I feel like, so in terms of like, I want it to completely, repeat my childhood, I think, well, that's not likely going to happen. So I went into it fully just expecting it to be, a fun Mandalorian and Grogu story. And I feel like that's what I got, and, but I was kind of surprised, like I don't know what you really could have done in 2 hours, to bring in like Bo-Katan or Boba Fett or Cobb Vanth or, Fennec or Peli or like, there's all these characters. They just weren't, part of this mission. And, I feel like that didn't need to be explained, in the context. But was there anybody you guys were maybe expecting to see that you didn't see?
It starts with a T, ends with an N, and he's blue. Grand Admiral Thrawn.
Oh yeah,
I wanted to tease. I wanted to tease at the end, like of his return, because if they're setting up the big crossover that we don't know what the status of that is, because right now the only known thing in this timeline is Ahsoka season 2 that's yet to come. And I mean I think the wrap up that they've said they're going to do has a good chance with Dave Filoni, kind of in charge of it, but
sure,
you never know. So I just wanted to tease though of something kind of move, like kind of like at the end of Iron Man, like the Iron Man movie, like it was a very self-contained story, and then at the very end, Nick Fury shows up and says, I've made the joke on other things and on the Discord, but I wanted someone to show up and say, I'm here to talk to you about the Delphi Ranger Initiative or something, to tease the next thing. So that was I would have loved to see Boba Fett and some of these other cameos from the Mandoverse, but I can see why they didn't have him in this particular movie, though.
Oh, Jeff, I'm sorry. They missed an incredible opportunity. I never thought of this. What if it was Mace Windu who
I've made that. Yeah, exactly.
Have you? Yeah, I figured.
I made that joke on the Discord that it was going to be.
I missed that. Oh my gosh. Yeah. What about
honestly,
you,
Thomas? I was not expecting a whole lot of cameos, because my thought going in was like, this movie is partly a self-contained story for people who have not necessarily seen the TV show, because I know that,
I think Dave said that too.
Yeah, and like despite the fact that like tons of people have seen it, I also run into tons of people all the time who haven't seen it. Mm-hmm. So I feel like this was meant to be a good introduction for people who are maybe on the fence about watching the show, so that this and you know what it very much reminded me of. The kind of self-contained stories that a film serial of the type that inspired George Lucas would tell. This is very much the latest adventure of the Mandalorian and Grogu, like, and then like, there's not a whole lot of character development, and then they just fly off to their next adventure. Yay. And so like it reminded me of that kind of classic cinema, episodic way of telling those serialized stories of like Buck Rogers or who's the other guy? Flash Gordon, inspired Star Wars. So I feel like this was very much a kind of homage almost to the things that pre-Star Wars that kind of became Star Wars.
Yeah.
Yeah. See, I would have been fine. Like if they had just added something at the end of like, when Din goes to hyperspace, which I don't know if we want to do the plot recap in a second.
Yeah, I was going to go to that next.
But if, Din goes to hyperspace and then you cut to a scene of somebody saying Grand Admiral Thrawn and he turns to the camera and that just gives a tease of what's next. Like I just wanted a little bit more connectivity to what the story will be next. Because again, if they had announced, that this is the first of the Mandalorian trilogy or something, sure. But like at this point, we don't know. Like I think getting another movie depends on the box office I don't think they're going to go back to the TV for another season of the show, but
I've heard they might. Actually, so
it's so up and down, like
it's up in the air. Yeah.
Well, actually, why don't I just ask you, since you mentioned that, Jeff, it may be a good time to just give that kind of recap, to sort of frame the plot of what the this movie itself just covers.
Okay, yeah. So here's the recap. So Din Djarin and Din Grogu hunt Imperial warlords on behalf of the New Republic. They are tasked to find Imperial Commander Coin, but they do not have a picture of him. His liaison, Colonel Ward, gives him a new Razor Crest ship, and he leaves with Ger Zebarelios from the Rebels fame. Their only lead is from the twins, the Hutts who have claimed Jabba's the Hutt's legacy. In exchange for Coin's location, the twins want Din to find their nephew Rhoda, the son of Jabba. They direct Din to the moon of Shikiri, where Rhoda is fighting as a gladiator. Din meets with him, who has one fight left on his contract, which Din learns is held by Janu, and that he doesn't want his father's legacy, thinking the twins sent Din to kill him. Din finds Janu, tells him that he plans to have Rhoda killed in a Djarik match facing the creatures from the Djarik Hollow board game. Din goes back to Rhoda, but Rhoda believes Janu will free him, and they are gassed. Din wakes up and immediately has to fight Rhoda, but is able to win the fight. Trying to yield, Janu then releases the creatures, and they have to fight their way out. But Rhoda doesn't want to go, because he assumes that Din is there to kill him. But Din, assisted by Zeb, brings Rhoda aboard. Rhoda tells them that Janu is actually Commander Coin, and the group attacks Janu's house and captures him. Ward tells Din to bring Rhoda to the twins to honor the deal, but Din refuses and brings him back to Navarro, where he catches another ship out of the system. However, the twins send Embo, the Kyuzu bounty hunter, and his dog to capture Din. The dog also brings in Anzellan, who are helping work on the new Razor Crest. When Din is taken away, Grogu and the other Anzellans board their tiny ship and go to Nal Hutta, while Din is brought before the twins, who throw him into a watery pit full of monsters. And they have also captured Rhoda and plan to torture him for centuries. Din fights a giant dragon snake and keeps from getting eaten, but is bitten by the venomous creature. Grogu and the Anzellans arrive and blow open a hole in the pit for Din, and they all escape into the swamp. Din tells the Anzellans and Grogu to get help and leave, and Din fights the droid army in the jungle, but eventually falls unconscious from the poison. As he is about to be attacked by a swarm of bugs, Grogu returns and protects him, using his healing abilities to heal the wound, but the poison is still in his body. He builds a mud hut over Din and explores the swamp, finding Gittori, another swamp dweller, who gives him some medicine that he gives to Din. It works, and Din wakes up, and they find the ship that Rhoda had left on. Din crashes it into the Hutt palace and fights his way to the twins. He again fights Embo, and Grogu frees Rhoda, who fights the twins. The Hutts and Embo fall through the floor into the pit, but Grogu uses the Force to lift Rhoda to safety. They escape to an outer wall and jump while a New Republic squadron flies in to destroy the base. They all go back to Adelphi, and Ward tells Din the twins were in fact giving intel to the Empire. Rhoda wants to stay with the New Republic, and Din and Grogu fly away, with Din starting to teach Grogu how to pilot. And then Thrawn does not appear, sadly.
I did the thing when I pulled my phone out, in the credits. It was like, are there mid or end credits?
Yeah, I did that. It was like, I did that before going in.
You did it yeah. There was no Din Djarin will return in whatever, like the Marvel things.
I'm glad I went back and watched. I didn't rewatch all of season 1 before this because I'd seen that a couple times, and I've seen like each season of The Mandalorian. I think I saw less than the season before it, just because as time's gone on. So season 3, I don't think I'd seen since it came out. And like you were saying, Thomas, people not really knowing about it. I mean, I was just checking. That was March and April 2023. So that's 3 years ago now. And, but I do remember, of course, that episode, the second to last, I think, episode in season 3, chapter 23, The Spies, where there's that awesome scene with that Shadow Council. Mm-hmm. And I think probably, like a lot of people, and maybe we can, bring this up because it connects here. I, for one, was most interested probably in like Captain Pelion because of the Thrawn connection, and, Brendel Hux, right? Because they're setting up Hux's father's character. But those other people, I didn't recognize, and then 2 of them, make their way into this movie, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, I had forgotten that Coin was in that scene.
Yeah.
Until I looked at it later, and then the first warlord, which we don't get his name, the one that Din fights on the.
They list him as Commander Barrow now on Wikipedia. Okay. Yeah,
gotcha. Yeah, I didn't see it, but yeah, they were. I didn't realize they were in it too. So that was kind of. I mean, that is kind of the connection to it, and I mean, we can imagine Din is going to keep going on hunts for the New Republic.
Going through the deck of cards.
Going through the deck of cards.
I can't believe they did that. Like, it's funny because like I wondered if they would. Because I'm like they've got. I knew the premise was the New Republic is hunting for Imperial warlords and high-ranking fugitives, and I'm like, I wonder if they're going to use a Sabak deck like the Iraq War deck of cards with Saddam Hussein and all the other. And I'm like, and they did, and I'm like, oh my gosh. Yeah, that was.
What did you guys really enjoy from that? Kind of a Hoth vibe, of course, there. At the beginning, but the only thing I would say, and then I would pitch to you guys and see what you think about this, is I'm not trying to be nitpicky, but I don't know. I just like it feels different when it's like CG, right? Versus like those old school, like, those models that was it Paul Tippett or Phil Tippett? I guess.
Phil Tippett. Phil Tippett. Yeah.
Phil. And just when you watch those behind the scenes things and stuff of how they made those originals, there's just something really special, I think, about. And they did use a lot of real models and stuff in this, I was seeing, but I didn't really, I don't know, but it was cool to see the old, AT-ATs again. So
yeah, I was distracted by the fact that they were Mark 1 AT-ATs that you see in Rebels and a few other things. They are not the more iconic like Mark IIs that we see in Empire Strikes Back, and that they had the AT-RTs. So it seems like this particular faction on this planet is taking a lot of stuff out of mothballs, to use it.
The B team.
Right, yeah, which is clear because like they are very easily handled by Mando. Very cool action. I enjoyed that quite a bit. I liked the fight scene inside the walker.
Yeah,
that was cool. Taking out everybody. Yeah,
because we hadn't really ever seen the interior or the cargo bay, or troop transport area of an AT-AT. So that was cool to see.
Yeah.
Well, and I love how, like, those, I say those poor Imperials, but like the last thing in the world, like they're so clearly like, this is our safe zone. Yeah. It's like, that's not like they're absolutely not prepared to be attacked inside there at all.
This film is surprisingly violent. Some of the stormtrooper deaths are pretty over the top. Like the one snowtrooper who is like first, like, fried with the flamethrower and then falls off the cliff, and you see his body strike the rock on the way down, and I'm like, whoa, okay.
I saw it today with my wife, the first time I saw it myself, and I wanted to bring my kids to it because, again, it's our first Star Wars movie in 7 years. And I don't know, I'm still kind of debating, is it too
I'm in the
violent?
Same boat.
Yeah, I know.
I think we might take them out on a couple scenes that might be scary. I mean, I think they'd be more scared of like the monsters. Like they'd probably think the stormtroopers getting killed and would be funny. I think they would.
That's what they do. No, it's like
because they don't really know. Like they've never really watched any of the movies, so this would be their first Star Wars movie. So
the kids in my theater were digging it. But it's like, but there were some pretty intense scenes there. And like you say, with the monsters and some of the gross out stuff. Like,
especially the basilisk. I mean, sorry, trademark. No, we'll get there. No, but so what do you guys think? I wanted to, maybe, I'm assuming you guys and everybody in that theater, Thomas, of course, all the kids, like, I'm assuming they were all like dying when Grogu's like just slamming on his helmet, but he keeps looking back at the charges.
Everybody was laughing at that. Yeah.
And whoever's on the, because they've shown the behind the scenes of like the guys, like the whole team operating, the Grogu puppet, whatever. And like, you just know they're having a blast back there, just fiddling with it to get the motions just right. And,
Well, one thing about that sequence, and just I think probably the biggest thing in the movie that advanced is Grogu as a character, because when at the end of season 3, I've rewatched Mandalorian a few times in the past year, because my wife hadn't watched it, so we just finished season 3 the other day, and at the end of season 3, like pretty much most of season 3, Grogu he's still kind of in the baby mode of like just wanting snacks and just being cute. Mm-hmm. But he became very active in this movie because at the end of season 3, he's adopted as a Mandalorian apprentice, and Din has to take him and start training him as such. And we start to see that here. Like in this sequence, he stopped the droid from, I guess, going to alert more troops or whatever it was, and he pulled it apart. And he was like riding on Din's shoulder through the whole, battle with the walkers, and then like very much, and just throughout the movie, he had like growth in character. So I think that's probably the biggest growth or biggest like move the story forward is he's no longer just a baby. Like he's actively participating in the missions and whatever is next. Like it was the Mandalorian, but now like the title says it's the Mandalorian and Grogu together, like actually doing the things they need to do.
Yeah. Yeah. That's something I was going to ask you, and maybe now's as good a time as any to bring it up, that just, not to be, like in all seriousness, it was one of my notes here was, what is this movie about? Right? Like, is it a father and son story? Is it, because I got more of that vibe from the show, and it's obviously in the movie too, but I really, in my opinion, I think Jeff and I kind of felt like what you just said is kind of the primary point of this movie is like Grogu not being independent maybe, but like, I feel like he clearly like achieves the most development of any, character in the movie.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, he pretty much like Din is pretty much at the same status as before. Like he didn't really have any major, I mean, I guess the only thing is his helmet got taken off and he didn't have a freak out about it.
Right.
And they might've changed the rules a little bit, because now if an enemy sees your face, you can kill them and you're still good. So I don't know if that, that's a changing of the rules.
There was some compromise between the two clans of the Mandalorians, maybe that are still playing nice. Like, okay, here's the deal. Listen.
Yeah, but I think the theme of fatherhood and family is because you have that example of Din and Grogu, but then you have Rhoda who's trying to get away from his family's legacy, which if you had told me, I knew Rhoda was in this movie. I've known for a while since they announced him, but if you had told me that I would have sympathy for a Hutt after a Star Wars movie, I would have called you crazy. That was not on my bingo card, but
by the way, it was really cool to see Nal Hutta, which I think I was a bit disappointed. And I'm glad that I was just reminded of something really interesting. So normally the Hutts don't grant anybody access to Nal Hutta. If you're meeting with them, you don't meet directly with them. You go to Nar Shaddaa, the moon, and they talk to you through intermediaries. The fact that they let Din on the planet and into like essentially like the clan leaders, the twins, into their throne room shows you how seriously they took this job that they were hiring Mando for. They let almost nobody on that planet, you have to deal with their intermediaries. So it's like, I found that pretty interesting. It was also interesting to see that they were using droids for a lot of their security work and other things. This jives with things we've seen in some of the post-Disney books, where they say that because the Hutts have servitor races. They have races like the Nikto, the Klatooinians, the Weequay, who are enslaved to the Hutts. And in some of the books, since in some of the canon books, there's been hints that there were revolts, and so the Hutts after Jabba's death, and so that the Hutts no longer have access to their normal muscle, and so now they're using droids. So I thought that was very interesting to see kind of how
some fun ones, some repurposed and literally dressed up.
Yeah, some B2 battle droids and a few other some HK units. Yeah. But yeah, it was interesting to see how the Hutt clans have evolved to, in the new state of play in the galaxy, and also dealing with the fallout from Jabba's death.
Yeah. Well, and speaking of the droids, Din definitely got to work out some of his anger at droids in this movie by taking out all these battle droids, because they killed, droids killed his family.
Yeah.
When he was a kid. So yeah, it's interesting for whatever the future state of the Hutts are going to be, because it seems like they've, it seems like all these are dead.
Yeah.
Except for Rhoda. And,
yeah.
I mean, maybe some of them, got out of the palace thing as it was collapsing. There's probably some off world, but
well, and there's a whole planet too that they could have other palaces,
right. But yeah, I mean, if they're kind of concentrating their power, I don't know, I don't remember in the legends what all it was. I remember there was a couple different Hutt clans, there was the Jabba's clan, and there were other clans on different planets and stuff.
I think in Clone Wars it's established that there are literally 5 families, if I remember
maybe
correctly,
right.
like the 5.
There just should be.
Yeah. And Jabba was kind of like the Lucky Luciano, the boss of bosses kind of figurehead. And with him gone, and you see the Pikes moving in on Hutt territory, they were all over Tatooine and Book of Boba Fett. And so it's it seems, like them and some of the other syndicates are, kind of filling the void. And even the Empire, the Imperial Remnant, has had to resort to, in some cases, criminal activity just to make credit to fund what they're doing,
Well, and just to jump around here a little bit real quick, because we'll get to the main mission in a sec, but I just want to mention, of course, Sigourney Weaver. What was her name again? Colonel Ward. I had seen a little interview with Favreau and Filoni before this, where Jon Favreau was saying that here you have, I guess they wanted her in it, and she's this, iconic sci-fi actress, going back to Alien and with Ghostbusters and all this stuff over the years, and Avatar more recently and stuff. And he just said that he said originally he said she had one condition, because the original script, I guess there was no actual scene with her and Grogu in it together. And Sigourney Weaver's just I'll do it if I'm in a scene with the green guy, I gotta be in, and so just just her, and him saluting her, later in the movie.
Oh, that was great. Yeah.
So the interactions between Grogu and Sigourney Weaver, they're very subtle, but it's just cute knowing that those were all put there for her because she requested it, which was pretty sweet that she's a fan of him like the rest of us. So, but yeah, I mean, I thought it would have been neat. There were rumors ahead of time that she had said something that hinted that there was going to be a mention of these legacy characters. But like you said, Jeff, there was, I mean, they said Anthony Daniels did the voice.
He did a voice, yeah.
But other than that, he was the air traffic controller, whatever, when they're coming in and out, or whatever. So somewhere in there. Yeah. But yeah, so I don't know if you guys had any thoughts on her, or was it kind of weird just having her come out of nowhere, but tied in though to this squadron that we've seen. I mean, it fits, I suppose.
Yeah.
I mean, I like Sigourney Weaver, and like you said, she's iconic and in tons of stuff, and she was cool. I think they probably wanted to get her in there more for name recognition, that Sigourney Weaver is in a Star Wars movie, more so than the character. I think could have been interchangeable with Carson Teva or any of those other characters. if this had been the TV show, it would have been Carson probably that he was dealing with. Like,
and he was only in it briefly, which sort of seems sort of strange.
Yeah.
But I mean, she was fine. I think just the role itself wasn't necessarily like, and which I guess is kind of true to sci-fi, because I think they wrote Ripley in Alien to be like, Ripley could be played by anyone, not necessarily a guy or a lady.
Right.
So
yeah,
kind of worked the same here.
Yeah, it was cool to see the whole Adelphi crew again. By the way, that name really distracts me because there is a local university not far from me named Adelphi University that I actually almost went to. Like, I did apply and get in, but I didn't go to that college. So, like, that name distracts me whenever I hear it. Because I'm like, that's too much of my real world pushing into Star Wars. But I liked seeing the squadron back. I was surprised that they came in at the end and actually, striked at Nalhada. The Eagles are coming, but in this case the X-Wings are coming.
X-Wings are coming.
The X-Wings are coming. But yeah, and it was great to see Zeb again and that he's kind of palling around with Mando doing acting as his extraction pilot for these missions. And it was great to Steve Blum, right, is the actor, the voice actor. Is great. Yeah, great to have him back.
I think he looked great. He looked very believable.
Especially his movements. Yeah, very simian-like. Which is appropriate. And in some of his fight, he had a hallway fight that was really cool.
Yeah.
Well, and you guys because this has come up before. We talked about different animation styles and stuff, and obviously to each his own. But I think everybody would agree, Rebels, as much, and I love it, but Rebels was not, designed to be as sort of fluid and realistic by any means as these later seasons of Clone Wars or like Bad Batch have been, and it's a lot more cartoony, I think, in the overall
the
look
technology
and
of the time too.
Well, right, yeah, and so exactly,
and it's also heavily stylized.
Right. So I just mean that, I can imagine if you're trying to take a character from that primarily, right, and into live action, that might be a little more challenging.
I mean, it also helps that Zeb is based off of early concept Macquarie art for Chewbacca. Yeah, so they do have more quote unquote realistic art of that alien species to work off of.
And that makes it legacy, even if people, for people who don't know that, they might be surprised, but that's just showing more of that, like how much of there still is to mine, from all of Macquarie's stuff alone.
Yeah. Well, and along with Zeb, so he did have the cameo in Mandalorian season 3, but it was just like, it was just a few seconds of talking, but I think I would consider this like more of his debut because he actually was more active, and along with him, we got another character from and I don't want to necessarily jump to that yet, but we got Embo from the Clone Wars. Like he was, he was a bounty hunter in the Clone Wars that has now made his way
out.
I'm glad you brought him up, Jeff, because he was one of my disappointments.
Is that right?
Okay.
Yeah, I'm not as familiar with that character. I may have seen the Clone Wars episodes he's in, but I don't remember them. And I just felt that for the sort of second tier bad guy to face Mando, I just found him a kind of bland and boring. He doesn't talk. He wasn't he could have been anybody. And to just have it, he just seemed like generic henchman. And he has a dog and his hat thing, odd job thing that he does. But I just found him generic henchman, and I wasn't impressed with him at all. Do you think they thought it would have been distracting to bring back? Because I think there's been speculation for years now that Cad's not really dead. To bring Cad Bane back. Well, that's the thing.
But do you think that would have been a little distracting, and then they would have felt like for those people who aren't familiar with his character that you couldn't just have Cad Bane without explaining it? I don't know.
Yeah, I think Embo, this version of Embo was very much like the Clone Wars Embo. Like, he's very much a strong, silent type. He does the mission. He barely talks, and when he does, he speaks in the Kyuzu language, not in basic. So he barely talks really. And he fights like he does in the movies. So for me, at least, and for Clone Wars fans, like who really like Embo. And we got to see his, and it's a different dog than the one in the Clone Wars, because I think because the Clone Wars was 20 something years before this in the timeline. So and I think so this is a different dog that he has. But
I think it's the same species. I believe.
Species,
but different dog. Yeah,
different one. The first one I think was called Marok, and this one I think was Kaibu was the name. But
okay.
I thought if they were going to bring in, like, I would have liked to have seen another one of the bounty hunter gang from Empire Strikes Back, you know, like Bosk or maybe like Dengar. Or like, I want to see them bring Dengar into something, actually, you know.
I wanted that so much in Book of Boba Fett. I wanted the bounty hunter wars, and it's not what we got, but...
it's like, and it's funny because Mando is very much doing in this film what because I cooked up a while ago kind of my dream Boba Fett movie, in which the premise was that Boba Fett and the other bounty hunters from Empire Strikes Back were hired by the New Republic as kind of a dirty dozen to go out and catch all these ex-Imperials. And of course the bounty hunters would all start backstabbing each other and stuff, because that's what they do. But like I almost like thought it would have been a cool like Star Wars version of Suicide Squad. Almost, to have all these like and as a writer that just starts like I'm like ooh, like I'm like I should like that would be something cool to do like outside of Star Wars. But like anyway, so like it would, and I like those characters so much because I just think they're visually exciting and distinctive that it would have been neat to have one of them showed up. But I guess like for those who remember Embo from the show, I'm glad he was exactly like he was in the show. It's just that I don't remember those episodes, so it's like, to me it's just like almost like being introduced to the character for the first time, and I'm like, okay. Like to me, he was kind of one note henchman. But
I think that stems from the fact that these, I call the Filoniverse basically everything stemming from the Clone Wars to Rebels to Bad Batch to the Mandalorian, Book of Boba, and Ahsoka. It's all part of Filoni's, because he was the George Lucas of the Clone Wars basically, and he was George Lucas's Padawan basically from the prequels. So I kind of think that's probably why they went with a character that he created versus a legacy character, because if you bring in a legacy character, that also invites all kinds of, well, it wasn't what I wanted or whatever from the fans, that from the more, dark side fans who,
you ruined my childhood.
You ruined Dengar, you ruined Bosk who was on screen for a few seconds.
It said nothing. So
which Bosk in the episodes of Clone Wars, Bosk and Dengar are active in that. I don't think they're in the same episodes as Embo, but they're in like similar bounty hunter episodes.
Well, this I want to just mention here, move us along, because there's a bunch of things to talk about with the moon Shikari, right, where he goes to find Rada, and I just saw this is one of the things on the StarWars.com trivia thing that I mentioned. It says the design for the moon Shikari resembles Prohibition era Chicago. And was inspired by director Jon Favreau's time in the real city, and which was kind of fun. And then I didn't realize the Dejarik match. They said that we can get to that scene maybe in a second, but they said that the arena, I guess, was called Weathers Apollo. in Arabesh, to commemorate Carl Weathers, who passed away, which was kind of cool.
And that was one a little slight disappointment with the movie for me, was there was no acknowledgement of Grief Karga or Carl Weathers, aside from that touch. Like I would have liked them
that we can't read, or most of us.
I would have liked them to acknowledge, like, at least that Grief is, I would have just an acknowledgement of that, because he was so integral to the series. But
you could have had, how like they had IG-11's statue, which they of course took down and then rebuilt him, and then we left off at the end of season 3 of Mandalorian just for like 10 seconds with like IG-11's back and he's the marshal. And I almost feel like you could have had some at least reference, or you could see him doing his marshaling thing and a statue in that same spot, of Grief or something,
that would have been neat.
Connected. But
I really enjoyed the Dejaric match idea.
Well, and if I may, Thomas, before we get there, can I just ask real quick about what your guys' thoughts were about about Martin Scorsese's entrance into the
so
as
I had
Hugo
to look
Durant
up
here.
that was him, and it was also bugging me through the whole movie because I knew I had seen that alien species somewhere, and I couldn't place it. And I looked it up later. That species appears in Solo, which is Jon Favreau's cameo, and then in this it's Scorsese. And apparently those two beings are even in the same family. They have the same surname,
the same last name. Yeah.
I think that's something they say in Solo is that they have a lot of kids. Like, how many kids did he say he has? A bunch of kids. So it would make sense that there's a big, the Rio clan. It's probably like, I don't know, it's just probably like a big family on that planet, and they spread out everywhere. So
I gotta say, I missed it in the watch, but then I saw in the some of the behind the scenes stuff here. Did you guys see the mud horn that he has in his little kitchen?
Yeah, the egg.
So the egg with the top sliced off, and he's got like a ladle in it.
Oh wow!
With all those kitchen stuff.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Wow.
Yeah, I was a little bit distracted because I was like, man, this, like, I know if you go to a hot dog cart in any city, like you're probably not too worried about the cleanliness of everything, but I was like that they probably haven't had health and safety come by this cart in a while.
This is not.
Oh my gosh.
I loved his attitude. He wasn't in it much, but just the whole thing of like, he just doesn't want to give. Like, he does not want to get in trouble.
Yeah.
So bad.
Yeah.
And that was pretty funny how long they stretched that out. And at the end, that scene when he's like, oh no, I'm not giving information. He's like, no, it's not for information. It's, it's for his tab or whatever, or his bill. How Amanda said it. Because Grogu just keeps taking stuff. So, and actually, Thomas, that might be a good connection. I'll punt it back to you here for the Dejaric match. The Mantel mix caught my eye right away.
Yeah, he's eating Mantel mix. And there's another Mantel
Bad Batch
reference. Is that one of the prominent monsters, the really large one? You remember the piece that R2 uses to smash Chewie's piece is a Mantelian Savrip. Is the name of that creature. So it was really neat to see that.
They were a lot creepier in real life instead of on that board, I'll tell you.
They're very strange, many of them, because many of them don't look like they actually fit in Star Wars. Yeah. Many of them look like they belong to some other sci-fi universe, but I was digging it. I
like Stranger Things.
Right, yeah. I like Star Wars creatures, and so it was really neat to see that scene kind of come to life. It's crazy that there exist like these matches where they bring the board game to life, and just, you know what it reminded me of? If you've seen the Genndy Tartakovsky shorts, it reminds me of that thing that Dooku goes to, where they unleash all these monsters on Asajj Ventress and see if she'll survive. So it reminded me very much of that.
Okay. Yeah. Well, and did you notice too the Savrip when it smashed the other one? That was recreating exactly what happened in the game in New Hope.
The game.
And that idea, like, that's what they do. Okay. Yeah. It was so gross on the one. I don't know which one it was, but like it totally goes to like bite Mando's head off, and but it can't get to the helmet. And I'm like, that's just like at some point I'm like, where's the line between I'm grateful this helmet works and like there's some things I just don't know if it's worth coming back from.
The one where like
so
he
gross.
is smashing the helmet with something, and I'm like, wait a minute, you'd have some kind of concussion from that. I don't care what that stuff's made
ringing
of.
his bell. Yeah. Oh my gosh. Well, and we kind of jumped around, but like, did you with Rada? Like you already talked about him a little bit, but I loved. It was I didn't see it coming. I expected him to be a bad guy, or at least they kept that going along, like he's just trying to get away. But I laughed so hard when like I think like how it turns there, where he's just like, "Can I feed him?" He sees Grogu, and you're like, but like that was so touching though. I mean, how honest and sincere he is when he's like, "I'm not my father,"
Yeah.
And and that whole thing of like, how many people, I'm fortunate that I don't have to carry that baggage, but how many. And we'll go with just men specifically here in this circumstance, but like, in the history of the world, have had to deal with something like that. You know, like I'm not my gangster dad, I'm not my warlord king father, whatever. You know, that's just a really powerful, thing to explore.
Right,
you know?
or even just a lesser, I'm not my alcoholic father. I'm not my this or that, or abusive,
Right.
So many men carry those wounds, or even just to fathers who were emotionally distant, and, don't want to impart those wounds to like the next generation. Yeah, it surprised me. It really did.
Yeah.
And at first I didn't know how I felt about Rhoda, but then I'm like, you know what? Yeah, it helps the movie explore those kind of fatherhood scenes, like jumping way towards the end where he says, to Rhoda, who's kind of befriended Grogu, says to him like, your dad's one of the good ones.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because when we last saw Rhoda in the Clone Wars movie, like the animated movie that came out before the show, or around on the show, he was kidnapped from Jabba, and then I think we might have seen him in an episode. Yeah, we might have seen him in an episode or as well. But Jabba seemed to actually care about him as a baby, which was very interesting. Knowing how we see Jabba and everything else, so. But yeah, we don't know what happened to him in between that and getting, he presumably he was still, a very young kid. And then after Jabba died was, I don't know if he was sold off or what happened, but
I think the Wikipedia had had Rhoda's birth date as I want to say 22 BBY or something like that, which would that be right? Would that fit in there? Fit in the Clone Wars era and stuff like that, or a little before that? But I was wondering because I was like, well, he's, so if he's in his 30s or something, because I think this movie's 11 ABY.
Yeah, something like that.
So I'm doing the math of that. And I'm thinking, because they said about living for centuries. So I was just trying to play around. It probably not that important, but I was thinking with Grogu's aging, because the Hutts specifically mentioned some kind of similar parallel of we live centuries too. Then when they make that threat to Din, which was a bad idea. but that. I was wondering how old I was getting a 20s, late teens, 20s kind of vibe off him.
Everyone calls him Kid. All the other characters call him Kid.
Yeah.
So,
which,
well, and
he had that when they're both sleeping and the Razor Crest was supposed to be awake. There was, I don't know, it was just he struck me as a high school student or a college student kind of age.
Well, and it was also
or something.
Yeah, it was also interesting hearing Hutt speak Basic and not Huttese, because the twins first spoke Basic to Din when he went, and it was, and I had seen a clip that they released before the movie, so I knew that was coming, that they would speak Basic. But it was very it wasn't bad. It was just very interesting because we only have the reference. Well, I guess we saw, I think, Zero the Hutt in Clone Wars, but he was kind of a one-off random. I wouldn't really consider him
the Truman Capote Hutt.
Yeah.
Right. That was pretty weird.
But but Jabba and the others never spoke. They always spoke Huttese. So
yeah, yeah, it's something because but I thought it made sense too. His whole he just has to get away from his But I guess it's not really his. Did he call him his aunt and uncle? I think they're Jabba's cousins. But they're they're like his aunt and uncle, I guess. But it was just the look on his face, I felt like it was when he really sank in, because he was pinning everything on that whole I'm my own man here, and I thought he'd say slug, but he's his own man, and the people, and how he's tasting that. I felt sorry for him, right? He's tasting that what he thinks is sincere praise of him, and not because of who he is, related to and all that kind of stuff. But then he sees right as soon as the tables turn in that arena.
Yeah, they
want
him
how quickly, they don't care about him at all.
Yeah.
And so that was well done, I thought. Was there anything else about I'm trying to think of how to because connect it, because there's that, and then the capture of Lord Jano. Was any of those things we missed, or the scene when he confronts Jano? That was kind of cool. That bar fight.
Yeah.
I really liked the bar fight. Yeah, and his sort of verbal. Yeah. And by the way, the thing that cracked my brother up the most was later on when that parrot or whatever that Janu has is hit with a blaster bolt or something, and it explodes into a cloud of feathers. My brother nearly fell out of his chair at the theater. He was laughing so hard.
It reminded me of when Cameron Diaz hits the crazy high note in Shrek and the little bird explodes. It's like it was the same kind of like just bizarre, like just poof.
And I thought it was interesting. They introduced the idea that like salt is currency on this planet, and that the government restricts it.
Rations.
For reasons.
There's a salt ration, but you can go to an underground bar to get salt.
To get salt, yeah.
And he gets paid in a big crystal of salt. And Den says, this is worthless where I come from, because on most worlds, salt would be
right
ubiquitous. So,
well, doesn't he live out past the salt flats or something, or something like that, like on Navarro? It's like my yard is made of this. I don't need this.
Yeah.
It's like being like coming from Earth and being like, here, dirt is currency. Right. It's like my planet is literally made of this stuff. Like
this is the stuff you want. Like, okay. I did think it was funny that Jono was played by where was it here? The actor's name
Johnny Coyne.
Johnny Coyne. I'm like, what did they run out of like well, you know what? He's like, can I please get a Star Wars name? Actually, you're like, no, I like your last name. We'll spell it different.
Yeah.
Like, dang it. Like, okay. Like, isn't George around here? Like, who's the guy who's a Costco? I forget the Mandalorian, the male Mandalorian that's like Bo-Katan's team. Yeah, right. It's because I think if I remember correctly, they said like Lucas was visiting the set that day and randomly named his character. So he's like, yes, like that sticks. That's how Obi-Wan's planet is stew, John. You just have to be in the right place in the right time for George Lucas to name your.
And then Johnny's henchman was named Hog's Breath. So,
right.
And then the fisherman who looks like an alien alligator was Gattori.
Gattori, that was fun. So why don't we let me ask you guys, because I think just in the interest of time here, I really want to make sure we get to focus on like when they get to the. Well, you tell me if you want to jump back here a little bit, but we have Embo, of course, show up after this mission. Like they capture the warlord, everything's looking good, and Mando's convincing Colonel Ward was a good idea because we sort of took out the middleman, right? Like we found the guy we were looking for. We don't need the Hutts and all this. They of course don't like that. They send Embo to retrieve him, and in the process, they come away with one of the Anzellans in the teeth of the dog. Which what did he yell? He's like, he's got me, or something like that, which was cute. But then, what do you guys think? I mean, just walk me through how you kind of when Grogu teams up with them. That whole like little mini montage to get out the door was just a lot of fun. I enjoyed it.
Are any of those guys Babu or?
See, I don't know. That was a question I had, and I hadn't looked it up to see. I don't think so, because we saw
some. Oh, go ahead. Sorry. Yeah,
I was gonna say we saw the Anzellans in season 3 of The Mandalorian.
Yeah.
So I don't think they're supposed to be Babu Frick, because the sequels are like 20 to 30 years after this, I think. So.
Well, who knows?
Star Wars, the trivia website there said they clarified and said that they're it's Anzellans named Minch, Bai, Keto, and Clang.
Okay, so none of them are Babu,
but they're all voiced by Shirley. Is it Shirley Henderson? Or it's the actress who played Moaning Myrtle.
Oh yeah,
in Harry Potter, and did the voice of Babu Freak. So she does the voice for all.
Droid broken.
Right? Yeah, I just like.
I think she also does.
Go black.
I think she also does Grogu too, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh, does she? Oh, okay. Well, yeah.
I think, yeah.
I had many questions that I had to suppress in my mind about how their dollhouse-sized spaceship works. Like, how did they manage to miniaturize a hyperdrive to work on this ship? And I started asking these questions, and my brother's like, "Don't think about it too hard."
I mean, it's like you can make tiny engines now. You just have to miniaturize it.
I loved how long they held the jump cut of the two of them at the controls, and Grogu's looks huge.
Yeah,
like inside, like just let that sink in.
Just like Mando with the the Jawas way back in season 1 when he's in the cockpit with them and he's like all hunched over and they're just like, "Ooh, God." He's just like, how did I get into this situation? You know, like,
oh my gosh. But that's, you know, they of course, you know, they get there. We talked about the droids, you know, you guys mentioned earlier, and like just that this den of hut, you know, disgustingness. And then of course, you know, we've got another pit. Like, why does anybody, like, when they walk in to meet a hut, like, can't you just like, like, you know what, I'm gonna go over here because there's something, I don't know, rancor or what it is, you know, but
they like their monsters.
Well, the first time he had his jetpack and would have been fine, but when Embo brings him back, he didn't have the jetpack. So
that's true.
Yeah.
So what was that? What did Gatori call that? He referred to it. It was some
dragon snake, which are native to Dagobah.
Yeah.
Okay.
They're native to Dagobah. Okay. They're a lot different than the way they looked in Legends. But whatever, like, they can retcon that. That's fine. Another Legends deep cut. Well, no, one of these aliens appears briefly in Return of the Jedi, but those other creatures that were in the water are the Amani. The Amani, and one of them is in Jabba's palace way back in, and they, although I remember, like, from the old Essential Guide to Aliens, I remember it saying the Amani were arboreal, and in this they're semi-aquatic, so another retcon. But it was neat to see them.
That picture from Jabba's palace there. Yeah, I recognize them now.
Yeah, it was neat to see them. They're scary looking aliens. That was, it was great.
You know, they didn't look. I mean, they happen. You know, you see them pretty quick and stuff, but like they don't look too terribly different to my eye from like the Pikes. Almost like that serpentine kind of head, like a cobra type. Yeah, but like really.
Yeah, they're like
really
flat,
creepy. Looking.
Yeah, they're like flat faced compared to the
cobra. Yeah,
but and we of course have this, you know, like Din's injury, and then, you know, it happens to look over at the little like it was a little sluice gate or something that Grogu, you know, like, hey Dad, hey, I brought your bombs.
Yeah,
you know,
that was great when Grogu was arming. He packed a detonator.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. So that, you know, so that really just wanted to really get your guys' thoughts on just those scenes where, honestly, I thought it lasted a lot longer than I expected, which I don't have a problem with. I think I kept expecting something a little different, but that's when I really started to sense that they're really trying to show us here, like, Grogu's journey right now and how he's handling this is a much bigger part of this movie, you know. So when he's got Din out there trying to hide him, any things really jumped out at you guys, or you thought that were really important, you know, growth points for him?
Yeah, I mean, I just love the whole thing of him, like, because, you know, for so long Din has had to protect Grogu, and Grogu is not really, he started to a little bit. Well, I guess he did in the first episode of The Mandalorian, but after that, I don't really think he did any, you know, protecting per se until the end of season 3 when he like stopped the fireball from. I guess there was a scene in season 1 too where he stopped fire, but then in but for the most part it's been Din protecting Grogu. But it was nice
and we knew he has the healing. Like I was anticipating that, but I like how it's like that's not enough, you know. Yeah,
so I like the scenes of him, like, you know, protecting him, because the droids are still hunting, because he you know, Din told him to leave with the Anzellans, but he didn't, because it's, you know, and that's kind of where his Grogu's growth comes in, is that he wanted to stay and help his dad. So
yeah, I like how he somehow, like, I guess his species instinctually knows how to make those mud huts.
Yeah, I thought that was fun too.
A little Yoda house, you know, and he's in, you know, a Yoda-like environment.
Right. Yeah. Like he fits there. Do you guys think, this is maybe a random question, but I'm always wondering this in the back of my mind, like that the, you know, I don't know that they have to do it, but I mean, like, this species comes from somewhere, you know, and I know like it was sort of Star Wars tradition that you just like leave Yoda alone. And then even like, you know, it's like Yaddle was like, okay, well, George, you know, that's George. He can do that. We don't know anything about Yaddle. Like, all of it was like make believe until they had, you know, Bryce Dallas Howard, you know, I think very interestingly explore her character then in that Tales of the Jedi. But but now Grogu he's the only other one. So it's like, are we gonna, you know, see the planet of the Yodas or something at some point? Does that matter?
Hope not.
Yeah,
I think that would kind of diminish it a little bit.
Yeah. See, they should be very rare.
Yeah. And I like the idea, and this might have been something we talked about in an episode once, Thomas, or I feel like I've talked about it to somebody about that. These are the Wills, which is like the guardian of the Wills. Like the original Star Wars movie was I think it was like Star Wars, Journal of the Wills or something.
Yeah.
So I like the idea that Yoda's species, that's what they are, that they're these Wills, spelled WHILLS. But yeah, I don't necessarily want them to go like, let's go to let's go to the Wills planet or Yoda's planet and meet a whole bunch of them and learn that it's like a whole planet of super force users or something.
Right.
I like I think they will kind of keep that mysterious, because at this point, like he's Baby Yoda, like everybody knows him as Baby
you don't need
Yoda, right. But he's on a different path because he's training. He's kind of Mandalorian and Jedi, and I think ultimately, whatever the wrap up of the entire Mandoverse whatever form that takes, that the show The Mandalorian and beyond is about Grogu's journey to become a Mandalorian, to become the Mandalorian. Yeah. So,
and I firmly anticipate in my futuristic headcanon, he one day becomes Mandalore and makes a new Darksaber, but we'll see.
Yeah.
He's got centuries to get there. Right. So
that's the thing. This character
idea. This character, right? Yeah,
has the potential to exist for 900 years of the timeline into the future. So he's gonna outlive everybody. So.
And what a brilliant idea! The more I think about it, for Favreau to pick that species and go make that move, because you could have made it other species that would have been fun for the story, but to have that in your back pocket was a pretty good move. These guys, they go on for a while,
Yeah, they go on for a while, and that they're seemingly very powerful.
Yeah.
So and I like that, he is going to be his own character. He's not all of the three ones that we know of, Yoda, Yaddle, and Grogu. All have different personalities. They even speak differently. Yaddle doesn't have Yoda's cadence, and in fact, I believe even in Legends there was this comic book, I think, that explored that Yoda picked up his unique speech pattern from his own master. That it's not something from his species, but it's kind of unique to him. His Yoda-isms. So, it's just, I want this species, though, to remain, their origins to remain mysterious,
Yeah, and one thing, too, that I was just thinking about is Grogu's healing ability that we've, he first used it in the Mandalorian, I think the second to last episode of season 1, and then, the next, that week was the Rise of Skywalker, when Rey uses that healing, which we hadn't seen in the canon before.
Yeah.
And so I think the way it's explained is it's a transfer of midi-chlorians from one to another. So I'm wondering if by healing, because he healed Grief Karga in that season 1 episode, and then now he's healed Din, does that shorten his lifespan at all? So potentially, maybe not by much.
That's how Ben Solo dies,
right? He gives the rest, the rest of his life force to save Rey. So
yeah.
So maybe that's just something in the future. I'm sure he'll still live a long time, but maybe not as long. Maybe not 900 years, maybe just 800 or something.
Right? Yeah.
Well, and so I'm sure you guys are in the same boat as me. The theater just erupted when little Grogu then is all right, here's my plan, and force push Dad into the igloo, and ding, his head keeps hitting.
Yeah, everybody was laughing.
He just didn't build it quite long enough and had to cover his leg.
But he keeps going. He tries it a half a dozen times.
Like a kid. Yeah, he's just what do you mean this? No, this should work.
It's so good.
When the Mandalorian first came out, we found out we were having our son, or we knew we were pregnant, but we found out it was a boy the week that the Mandalorian came out, and so from then on, Baby Yoda was my son's spirit animal, and he is very mischievous and wants all the snacks. So it's so seeing him do this kind of stuff, I'm I could see my son doing this. So he does. Well,
that was when he crawls in then with him and crawls under his arm and everything. I'm sitting there
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I was too. Yeah, like I felt I was like, oh, like it's rare that my son does that, but now if he did, I'd be like, oh, I love you, son.
Well, it's funny because we we've talked about this before too a lot, but I think we don't have to belabor it more. But I do think it's just so beautiful that that you have like a in a franchise where there is so frequently the storyline and done so well from a lot of different angles, the storyline of the problematic father and son relationship, right? To say the least, to have this one where it's not perfect, like they're both developing everything, but it's just so, I think it's just such an important thing right now for our age, right? When fatherhood itself is so often, denigrated or ignored or washed away. Like I think that's a very timely, sort of influence that's, I think, good. Good for society.
It inverts the sort of central conceit of the original trilogy of, the reconciliation with the father, which is, which is a huge mythic archetype that Lucas was drawing from.
Sure.
But it's like, it's neat to see the flip side of that. The light side, you might say.
Yeah,
right. The positive father-son relationship, but still a father who learns much from the son, just like Vader. Like I loved that line. Where Mando's like, the what is it? The old protect the young, and then the young protect the old.
Yeah,
and that was
This is the way.
This is the way. Yeah,
I think that's.
Oh, go ahead, Jeff. Yeah,
I would say I think that's the only "this is the way" that we got in the movie, but I'm glad they got one in there because it's such a.
I was surprised it wasn't in there more. I think they said "this is the way" 8 times in the last 2 scenes of season 3. Yeah. It's like, guys, we got it. Like, all right.
Yeah, and one other. So there was also a clip. Or it was like a promotional clip or trailer that came out, but there for the movie. It was early May that it came. I think it came out May the 4th, actually. But one of the clips said that the movie it said a child whose past holds the key to the future of the galaxy. So I don't know what that means for, it could have just been like, this sounds impressive in marketing, let's throw that in there. Or like, what is, is there a plan for what the future is? So just to speak on, continue speaking on Grogu there. So.
Well, and and Thomas, certainly I know, you would know as a writer too, that, if you got this, these characters, like they don't ever really stop growing right in your mind. I mean, there's no way. I mean, Favreau's been on this for, when the first season came out, fall of 2019. That was one of the reasons I wanted to be on this show tonight, because this is near and dear to my SQPN heart, because my foray into Secrets of Star Wars, at least, was on that we got that panel back together, to revive the show, basically to dig into season 1 of Mandalorian. So that was, something very special. I just think it's, I'm sure he's got all kinds of ideas of possible things you could do.
I think he's talked about that he's got ideas, but I think, whether they do a movie or like a, wrap up show or whatever, depends on the box office, which, like, there's been a lot of reports that this is the lowest opening and stuff like that, but it's pretty on par with Solo. And adjusted for inflation, maybe not as close, but it's also one of the highest fan rated. Like, it's only, I think, rated below the original trilogy, but it's rated higher than even Rogue One by fans on Rotten Tomatoes.
I want to make sure I ask you guys this, because I think this is a good place to ask it. And we got to, are getting closer to the end of our show here, but we want to, I think this is a good thing to bring up. And it was, as I left the theater, what was really on my mind, and I know, Jeff, you said the word fun, like the word fun came up so much earlier on in this, and that was the word I kept thinking of. And I just complained about this in the last couple of years. And to each his own, everyone, has their own different taste when it comes to Star Wars. I won't bring that up right now per se, but I was feeling this, like, it has to be fun, and I don't know, like, sometimes it doesn't feel that way. And this felt fun all through it. But then what really was on my mind coming out of the theater in a particular way was, I just kind of was like meditating on this, and I don't really have an answer for it. I want to see if you guys have any thoughts on the spot of, like, what is a Star Wars movie? Like, versus like what is a Star Wars TV show? And I don't really have an answer to that yet. But I guess it's not even so much a criticism, but I was sitting there, I loved every minute of this, but I was like, this just feels very different than like, you know, like seeing Empire Strikes Back's, you know, special edition in the theater when I was like 13 years old, or like seeing the prequel movies in the theater, or Solo even, you know, Rogue One. What do you guys think about that? Did you have any thoughts as far as that? Like, is it because this came from a TV show? In which case my mom, who's a bigger Star Trek fan, brought up what the Star Trek movies are so great and feel cinematic. I said, that's a really good point, but also it was a long time since the show had been on TV. I think before the movies started coming out, you know, a good 15 years. Does that have something to do with it? I don't know. You know, Mandalorian's still very much this TV show in our minds, and now it's on the screen. I don't know. We'll just see what you guys think.
Yeah, I mean, this is the first, you know, way this happened for Star Wars, going from TV screen to movie screen. It's always been the reverse of like a movie character then is added into a TV show or something. Right. So, or, you know, a TV series character was added to another TV series, you know, in the future. But yeah, this is the first time it was a TV show going to a movie. And I mean, it did, like I said earlier, it did really feel like an episode of the show, or like a, you know, an arc of the show, half of a season or whatever. Yeah. And maybe that was kind of the original plan, that they, you know, when they decided to make a movie, is they took elements of whatever was going to be season 4 and kind of edited it into a movie. So maybe, I mean, it doesn't feel, I guess it doesn't feel as epic as like the other movies, at least like the original trilogy and prequels, and even the sequels. Like they at least felt
right.
There was an epicness in Rogue One. You know, Solo this is kind of in the same boat as Solo, like a very kind of one-off, like adventure type of thing, whereas the others felt like they had more, you know, weight and consequence to them. And that's, you know, again, I was a little bit, you know, I'm a little bit let down that they didn't have like, let's tease the next thing in this movie, but you know, we already talked about that.
Or some hint of Ahsoka, you know, which they know is coming up,
right?
You know, even her, or like, you know, Zeb, you know, sees, because we know Ezra's back,
right?
So maybe like, you know, Zeb and Ezra at the end, or I don't know, there could be something like that.
Or Hera shows up and lands on a Delphi base and says, "We got to talk. We got a problem," or something.
Yeah, Zeb, I need you now. You're like, oh.
But yeah, no, I mean, it was a fun adventure, and I think it definitely, like, seeing the Mandalorian and Grogu pop up on the screen, like the title card, and then hearing that theme intro, hearing that in the theater was I was in heaven hearing that. So So even if it wasn't the same level of, like, it was a smaller story, but I think those stories have a place in the theater.
Sure.
So
yeah, Thomas, how about you? Any thoughts on that, or?
It's like, I'll reference what I said in the beginning, that it felt very much like a old time movie adventure serial come to life and in modern day. And I enjoy that, almost kind of like Indiana Jones did, you know, for that kind of like self-contained adventure, but leaving the door open for other stories, you know, that could be done. So it's like, yeah, it had very much that classic old school adventure feel. One last thing I'll point out is actually the music was very cool, not just of how many iterations of the Mando theme they were able to create. And I feel like they may have seen those synth covers of the Mando theme on YouTube and were like, we can do one better, you know, like
yeah, because it was the same composer, Ludwig Göransson. And I love, we, you know, if Pat was here, he'd talk about the music a lot, but the music was great too, and it felt very much like Mandalorian, like, so it wasn't like, you know, it wasn't just the characters, like, it was very much, this is the show, you know, brought to the screen.
And intro credits, which you rarely see in movies today, which was another neat throwback to classic cinema.
A little Top Gunny.
I
felt like approaching the base too.
Oh my gosh. I'm waiting for that, for someone to edit that on YouTube and make it, you know, because they've done it for like, I think when Mando got the N1 back in Book of Boba Fett. But
there's a great YouTube video where they cut together a lot of X-Wing footage and put it and set it to Danger Zone.
Yeah. So I'm waiting for that to do that here, but it was a lot of fun. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you what, guys, we're getting close to the end of our time here. There was, anything else in particular that we didn't cover, you just wanted to mention, just sort of like kind of big picture, closing thoughts, last call on basically anything about this movie you'd tell fans of this show to maybe be prepared for, or maybe to keep an eye out for, or just any suggestions.
So the only other thing I really wanted to mention was that this is the first Star Wars movie with no lightsaber. Because even in Solo, Darth Maul ignited the lightsaber, and even in Rogue One, Vader had the hallway fight. So there was no.
Right.
So now we can say that a Star Wars film does not need lightsabers because they did it here. So
good point.
And he didn't have the Darksaber anymore, of course, because if you give it to Bo, and then it was destroyed.
It was broken,
I still think Luke should just back off and let like he's just gonna keep Yoda's. Like, what good is Yoda's lightsaber doing in a box? This kid's out there on adventures. Come on.
He chose the Mandalorian way, though.
That's right. Right. How about you, Thomas? Any last thoughts?
Yeah, I hope that we were gonna see more of these characters, but it would be nice.
Nobody died.
Yeah, it would be nice to get a couple more, films with them, kind of like. And to do it kind of like the Indiana Jones movies were, where they weren't necessarily telling a cohesive story. It was just more like the latest adventure of, So like, I think that would kind of be
you have to fight.
Right. Yeah. So I feel like, it would be a neat way to kind of have Mando and Grogu go on an adventure without doing stuff that would, have ramifications for the show. So in other words, like, you can still have this one-off adventure while leaving the big moments and epic character development for the main show, Yeah.
I almost wonder if there's like room for like an in-between thing, like those like TV specials they used to have,
Yeah.
Where you had like a 1 hour special or something where it is a standalone story, but it's longer than in an episode. And, that might be a neat way to move it along. And
that's what this reminded me of, like the way shows used to do, the special, like, oh gosh, I'm dating myself here, but I grew up on those DC Comics animated shows. And I remember when they did the World's Finest special where it was Batman meets Superman, and it was like an hour and a half. And it was like, that was, and they just did it as like a TV movie. That was great, and this is kind of like what that reminds me of.
This is a bizarre deep cut. Do you guys remember that old show Wishbone on PBS where they told the stories? They did like a Wishbone like special. I remember when I was like in middle school or something. That was like it was like a Halloween one. I think it was like probably Sleepy Hollow or something. And it was like an hour.
Oh yes, it was.
Half hour. Yeah. So just I wonder there might be. And I wonder that might even be, budget friendly too. If they're worried about some huge multi-episode season versus some, I don't know, like. But I guess that also depends on how much the actors want that paycheck for, for a 1 hour special.
Yeah. Well, and one of the speaking of actors, one thing that was cool is that Brendan Wayne and Lateef Crowder, who are the in-suit performers for the most part, got like title credits or got like opening actor credits.
I think they were right behind Pedro too. Like they were up there, like as well they should be. It's hey, we're in the suit too.
I mean, because I think for the most part, Pedro Pascal just records the lines. And then any off-helmet scene, he does that, of course. But this was mostly, he wore the helmet most of the movie, so
right.
So
well. I think we'll leave it there for now and just let everybody, if you haven't seen it yet, why are you listening to this for an hour and 17? You could have gone to the movie, but then come back and listen to this later. But that'll be it though for us, this episode of The Secrets of Star Wars. And we'd like to take a moment to thank all of our patrons who make this show possible, including Father John R., John S., Luke E., Tim and Marie M., and Timothy B. Their generous donations help us to create The Secrets of Star Wars and all the shows here at StarQuest, and you can join them at GiveStarQuest.com. Be sure to follow The Secrets of Star Wars on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, your favorite podcast app, and on the StarQuest YouTube channel. You can find us on Facebook at Facebook.com/StarQuestMedia, on X where we are at SQPN, or on Instagram where we are at StarQuest Network. And be sure to get your official Secrets of Star Wars gear at sqpn.com/merch. By the way, I should mention, I haven't been on here since I think last time it was a Jeff, you and Catherine and I were talking about those cups. So no word on that yet. The calf cups from Maul Shadow Lord. I'll
the upside down handle.
I remember that.
I like that handle. And now we'd like to hear from you, our listeners. What did you think of The Mandalorian and Grogu? You can let us know by sending us an email at starwars@sqpn.com, on our social media pages, or by leaving a comment on our channel on the StarQuest Discord server, which you can find at sqpn.com/discord. We have a spoiler channel and one that will be current with the show, so you can jump up into the conversation wherever you are. So join us next time on The Secrets of Star Wars as we continue our Maul Shadow Lord season breakdown. And next up is Chapter 7, Call to Oblivion. Just an awesome title. So until next time, thank you for joining me in sharing the secrets of Star Wars. And thank you, Jeff Haecker.
Thanks, Mike.
Absolutely. Thank you. And Thomas Salerno, thanks so much again.
Thank you, Mike. I have spoken.
R.I.P. Quill.
Wonderful. Once again, I'm Mike Creavey, and thank you for listening to The Secrets of Star Wars on StarQuest.
Here's another show on the StarQuest Network you're sure to enjoy. The Secrets of Sacred Art. Find it wherever fine podcasts are found or at starquest.fm/art.